Part 3 of another brilliant lecture with Professor Victor Singingeagle here at Sisseton, Wahpeton College in Native Literature. Are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready! Alright, let's get busy. Put my glasses on so I can see! Right. Lesson plan. Read, listen, tell, walk through. We didn't really walk through this book a little bit like I wanted to. Gave you a little bit of Daniel Heath Justice's Why Indigenous Literatures Matter, but I want to walk you through this because this is kind of like the main crux, the heartbeat of our class. And I see here, as I have written, the stories appear thematically arranged in this textbook, and later they are chronologically arranged. So if you were to open this book to the very first couple of pages, read, listen, tell, Indigenous Stories from Turtle Island, edited by Sophie McCall, Deanna Reader, David Gartner, and Gabrielle Leondel. I hope I said that right. So let's open up where it says page V. Table of contents by theme. The goal of Read, Listen, Tell is not only to share with readers an incredibly diverse collection of indigenous stories, but also to transform methods of reading by bringing into the forefront practices in interpreting texts that are grounded in indigenous knowledges and scholarship. Each of the chapters offers particular strategies for reading the stories in multiple ways, encouraging readers to expand the scope of the short story by including broad range of story forms. So I'm going to stop because it's just a bunch of yakety teacher talk. But the first section is the truth about stories is stories are all that we are. That's the first section. The stories are all that we are. What does that mean? I'll leave that up to you. The second section is called Land, Homeland, Territory. So there's probably relationship between land, story, and community. Ooh. The third section says Reinventing the Enemy's Language. Stories in this section explore distinct values and knowledges contained within indigenous languages. Not only are the authors making intentional word choices to influence the tone, mood, and shape of their narratives, they are alternating between indigenous languages and various forms of English. That's the second part, which starts on page 124. Then, part 4, Cree knowledge embedded in stories, because remember, we're also covering Canada. We're talking Native America's indigenous stories. So we're going to look at the Cree, which is like the hugest, largest tribe up in Canada, and some of their stories. That starts on page 160. And then item 5 here says each word has a story of its own, story arcs and story cycles. So it says here indigenous stories that might be categorized as traditional are often part of a larger story cycle. That is, the particular story is only one small part of a series of connected stories. I like that. And there's relationships between the stories. You oftentimes, when you hear me tell stories, you'll hear similar connections, like the Coyotes super glue story. There's a series of stories. What else? Community self-transformation. This is part 6, where it says, how do we understand the self in relation to others? That starts on page 246. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories here. Grandma and the Wendigo. Ooh, that sounds scary. Part 7, shifting perspectives. There's a story here that says, never marry a Mexican, page 288. Juxtaposition of different points of views. That's section 7. And then indigenous fantasy. Ooh, Ooh, my favorite. And sci-fi is section 8. That's on page 327. And I do have some books on my shelf, and I'm going to order more of what I call indigenofuturism. So there's a little taste of that in this our textbook, starting at page 327. Ooh, Tatterborn by Daniel Heath Justice, Men on the Moon by my old buddy Simon Ortiz, Father, Son, and Holy Rabbit. I haven't read that one yet. Terminal Avenue on Drowning Pond by Allison Hedgecote. I remember Allison. I haven't talked to her in years. I'm going to get a hold of these people. This is terrible. And stop being such a recluse. And then, so that's kind of the main thing. And then you can also keep turning in the beginning of this book. It'll have, instead of doing it by theme, you could also look up stuff by decade of publication. This is on page X. And then, of course, we got our acknowledgments and our preface and all that gobbledygook. But at least we kind of have an idea. I hope that I have whet your appetite to have a look at that book right now. I have been hinting a little bit about this. The Ancient Child and Leslie Marmon Silko's Ceremony. Where is it? I was going to pull it up off my shelf. I'm always pulling books off my shelf and forgetting to put them back. Simon Ortiz says, I thought I had it alphabetized, but I don't. The Planetary Mind by Simpson. Michael Simpson. Nope, not there. I'll have to dig it out later. Leslie Marmon Silko's book, Ceremony. When I first read the book, again, here comes me with the me, I stuff again. I had just gotten out of the military, and I was a mess. Let's just put it that way. Mr. Singingeagle mess. I'm going back to college, and one of my professors handed me Leslie Marmon Silko's Ceremony, and it helped me to heal from my disconnection with my own culture. Runaway band of the Potawatomi Indians. The same thing is happening here in The Ancient Child. I believe this Pulitzer Prize winning author of House Made of Dawn, which I'm reading the wrong book. We're supposed to be looking at this one. He wrote this book, and it was groundbreaking in the sense that here comes this kid fresh out of the military. I think it's World War II, and he is a mess, just like I was. Let's read. July 20. The river lies in the valley of hills and fields. The north end of the valley is narrow, and the river runs down from the mountains through a canyon. The sun strikes the canyon floor only a few hours each day, and in the winter the snow remains for a long time in the crevices of the walls. There is a town in the valley, and there are ruins of other towns in the canyon. In 3 directions from the town there are cultivated fields. Most of them lie to the west, across the river, on the slope of the plain. Now and then in winter, great angles of geese fly through the valley, and then the sky and the geese are the same color, and the air is hard and damp, and smoke rises from the houses of the town. The seasons lie hard upon the land. In summer, the valley is hot. Somebody's calling me. I'm going to ignore it. I'm sick of people calling me when I'm trying to teach. Fields are irregular and small. All right, I'm going to stop right there because what's happening is he's really good at laying the scene, describing scenery and describing the land where things take place. That's one of his claims to fame. Mr. Momaday, another person I met and chatted with several times. And people say that, oh, Singingeagle, you write just like Momaday. Well, who knows? Maybe I do. I don't know. But I'm not going to share my writing right now. I just want to tell you about the man himself. Who is Momaday? Also known as Mamadate. Well, his real name is Navarre. That's N. Scott Momaday. Navarre Scott Momaday. He was born 1934 in Lawton, Oklahoma. His mom was a writer. His dad was a painter. And his parents became Arizona, New Mexico teachers out on the pueblos, those small pueblo native communities there. And one day they went on a road trip and they went up north. I think it is Wyoming. I could be wrong, but they went to Devil's Tower, and the local natives there, they saw a little boy and he loved bears. He was crazy about bears, and so they named him Rock Tree Boy. And we'll talk more about that next time, or you could look at my video where I talk about fathers love stone and see what I'm talking about. Then let's see what else we can scroll down or look down. University of New Mexico, he got his BA in English literature, and then he went to Stanford to get his PhD. That's where he met Harvey Dumars. Okay, in 1968 is when he wrote House Made of Dawn. That's the book I was just sharing with you. And then 1976 he wrote Way to Rainy Mountain. These works brought the oral tradition into literary forefront, or literary form, I should say. What do I mean by that? Well, it was groundbreaking because remember what I said before, nobody had ever seen this kind of work. And this is, the 60s, and everybody's all trying to be free love and expand their minds and smoke a lot of weed and do a lot of LSD and look at new ways of looking at stuff. And so, woo, Indians, woo, look at how smart the Indians are. And he stepped onto the scene at the right time. And they started reading his works, and it was the primary catalyst of the Native American Renaissance. Got it? His work paved the way for Harjo and Silko and Welch and all these other wonderful native authors that we have. There is a Smithsonian video which I will post for you on e-learning called 2008 Native Writers Series number 1, where there's an interview with him. Keep in mind that he is a great academic speaker. After all, he went to Stanford and he was well educated. He specialized, though, in oral tradition, so he's an educated Indian. I know Harvey said sometimes he gave old Momaday a hard time because sometimes we get a little too big for our britches when we get educated. Well, never mind all that. Item 8 says here there's a peaceful braid of myth, history, and memoir in a lot of Momaday's work, but always in his works there is a reverence for the natural world. Got it? All right. Now we're going to skip on over to Father's Love Stone. There is a video I already posted on e-learning, but I'm going to preface it by drawing your attention to the following. That is, a lot of times you'll notice that here in the Americas, the newcomers. Wow, I look fat. No, the newcomers have come along. These are the folks from Europe, and they look at natural features that are so fantastic and just awe-inspiring, and they name them after devils. What's up with that? Well, it's because they're disconnected from this land, and I'm going to start getting all preachy on you. Let me just read some of these natural feature names that the newcomers came up with. Devil's Bathtub, Devil's Canyon, Devil's Den, Devil's Eye, Devil Falls, Devil's Golf Course, Devil's Head, Devil's Icebox, Devil's Jaw. Devil's Kitchen, Devil's Lake, Devil's Mill, Devil's Nest, Devil's Oyster, Devil's Playground, Devil's Quarry, Devil's Rock, Devil's Stovepipe, Devil's Tower, Devil's Urn, Devil's Valley, Devil's Well. I bet there's even a devil's kneecap and devil's toe bone. You never know, but these are beautiful features of the land, and the newcomers come along and they go, oh, we don't know what this is. Maybe the devil did it. I could go on, but I put on here it is possibly rooted in fear, also disconnection from the land, as I said before. Here's a small anecdote to explain what I mean. Way back in the 1980s, before any of you guys were born, there was a young native student, the only Indian in his class. He took a class called Literature and the Environment. I remember the teacher's name was Della Bornstein, Professor Della Bornstein. And the only Indian sat in the front of the class because he was a nerd, and he read carefully, and the teacher said, or the professor said, I want you to take out a piece of paper. I'm wiggling the mouse because my computer's crashing. Oh, darn it, wants me to log back in. Never mind, I don't feel like it. I'm lazy. Gotta talk to you guys and finish this. The teacher said, take out a piece of paper. Write in the middle of the paper the word forest. And then everything that pops into your head when you think of the word forest, write it on there. Just one or two words. So the students got to scribble. And they were writing and writing and writing and writing. And then after 10 minutes, okay, time. Now let's share what we've written. So, one by one, the students shared. They wrote creepy. Remember, the word is forest. Dark, scary, haunted, wild, bears, monsters, lions and tigers and bears, oh my! And then when it came time for the one single Indian in the class, can you imagine what that kid wrote? He wrote, lovely, peaceful, green, trees, nature, soothing, calmness, and then right in the big capital letters, the word home. Freaked the class out. And now I'll knock it off there and share the video. So thank you so much for sticking with me, and you guys have an awesome day and the rest of the week too. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.